A kid went missing, then another one, then a third, and finally a fourth. This wasn't some big city crime wave. It happened in a small village where everyone knows each other. No witnesses, no evidence, just vanished. But the real nightmare, it wasn't who you think. It was a woman, someone you'd never suspect, stealing kids and burning them in an actual oven. No, this isn't some twisted horror story. It actually happened. And the truth behind it is way darker than you're ready for. It all kicked off with a Facebook post on a page called Missing Children. There was a photo of a little boy named Adam, reported missing on September 16, 2016. People freaked out. Some dropped tips, others said they seen him. Some just prayed he came home safe. But in the village, it was more than just a social media post. This close-knit community had never seen anything like it. How could a child just vanish like that? Who would be bold enough or monstrous enough to snatch that child of someone they knew, leaving absolutely no trace? The moment the news spread, chaos erupted. It wasn't just Adam's family searching. Neighbors mobilized too, scouring every inch of the village and beyond in a desperate hunt. Even the police joined the search. Yet, all efforts failed. It was as if the boy had simply vanished into thin air, like the earth had opened up and swallowed him whole, leaving not a single clue behind. Just 3 months later, on December 3rd, 2016, the same Facebook page posted again. This time, it wasn't about Adam. Another child was missing from the same village. His name was Yusuf. He'd been playing with his 6-year-old cousin when he disappeared. His mother had left them together for just moments while they went to the grocery. But when the little girl came back alone, screaming and crying hysterically, his mother knew. The nightmare was happening all over again. Yusuf was gone. The whole village was stunned. How could 2 children vanish in a place where everyone knew everyone else? Fear started creeping into hearts. Parents stopped letting their kids playing outside. Everyone was terrified their child might be next. Still, Yusuf wasn't found. Despite police investigations and intense searches, the outcome was the same as with Adam. Nothing. But what came next made it even more terrifying. July 4, 2017. 7 months after Yusuf vanished, a third child disappeared. This time, it wasn't a boy, it was a little girl. Not even 3 years old. Her name was Hanin. 3 children, 3 disappearances, and not a single clue about what was happening. The families didn't give up. They searched relentlessly, combing everywhere. Any place that might hold an answer to this mystery. But ultimately, they found nothing. When hope ran out, they turned to sheikhs and fortune tellers. And through them came a truth more horrifying than they ever imagined. The perpetrator was a woman. But who was she? What was her connection to these disappearances? And why only children? This wasn't just separate incidents anymore. It had become a nightmare with no end in sight. The woman mentioned by sheikhs wasn't related to little Hanin, nor connected to her father. This opened up a whole new question. Could she be linked to Adam and Yusuf? No one knew, but with each passing day, the mystery only deepened. Since the disappearances made no sense, wild rumors began swirling through the village. Some whispered about an organ harvesting ring snatching children. Others were convinced it was black magic, that the children's blood was being used in dark rituals to uncover buried treasures or ancient artifacts. It might sound far-fetched, but in a village reeling from 3 vanishings without a trace, the supernatural didn't seem so unlikely, especially with past cases proving cults had used children's blood in occult practices. Even though police dismissed the rumors, the villagers treated them as fact. Then, 3 months after the last disappearances, came the worst shock yet. A 4th child vanished. His name was Muhammad, but this time was different. Muhammad wasn't taken from the street or while playing. He was snatched from his own home. No one saw him leave. No one heard a sound. No trace, no evidence. Now everyone wondered, had the kidnapper grown bolder? Was he now breaking into homes to steal children from their families' arms? Something had to be done and fast. The police made a critical decision. A full investigative team was assembled to sweep the entire village house by house, searching for any clue that might crack the case. During the intense search, one officer noticed something strange, a scene straight out of a horror film. A woman standing silently on a rooftop, watching their every move. Her gaze was fixed, unblinking. When the officer spotted her, she quickly retreated and vanished. Noticing smoke rising from that same rooftop, the officer immediately headed there with his team. He knocked, but the door was opened not by the watcher, but by an elderly woman. He asked about the woman on the roof and learned her name, Hanan. Mid-conversation, Hanan suddenly appeared. Coming downstairs, the officer wasted no time. He asked for her identity. She revealed she was Muhammad's aunt, but curiosity got the better of him. He requested to see the roof. At that moment, tension flashed across Hanan's face. She clearly didn't want them up there, but she had no choice. She agreed. When they climbed up, they found a blazing oven, billowing thick smoke. So far, nothing unusual. Ovens burn in every home. But what wasn't normal was the smell. It didn't smell like baking bread. It was something else entirely. The officer stepped forward and instantly put out the flames. When he peered inside the oven, he found something no one would ever expect in a quiet little village like this. But before we reveal what he saw, we need to understand who is Hanan and who's the elderly woman living with her. The woman who answered the door was Afnad. She lives with her son and his wife Hanan. But most of the time, only Afnad and Hanan were home. The son worked outside the village, possibly even outside the country entirely. Ever since their marriage, Afnad's son had longed for a boy. But things didn't go as planned. His wife's firstborn was a daughter, and this is where the trouble began. Though childbirth is in God's hands, the family was far from satisfied. Everyone, especially Afnad, was convinced the next baby would be a boy. But when Hanan gave birth a second time, another girl, then came her third pregnancy and a third daughter. That's when the real torment started. Hanan became a constant target of ridicule and scorn, not just from her mother-in-law, but even relatives, as if she alone decided the baby's gender. No one understood or refused to understand that the father determines the child's sex, not the mother. But what did any of this have to do with the missing children? And what did the officer find in that oven? The truth was chilling and more twisted more than anyone could have imagined. Hanan wasn't snatching children at random. She was carrying out a warped revenge. A revenge born from spite and jealousy that festered into something monstrous. It all started with the humiliation. Afnad, her mother-in-law, saw her only as a failure who couldn't bear sons. The shaming never stopped. It even escalated to threats. When my son returns, he will divorce you. That ignited a fire of hatred in Hanan. A hatred that soon spread beyond Afnad to any woman with children. Suddenly, it wasn't just jealousy. It was a hunger for vengeance. And it began with the first child, Adam. Adam wasn't a stranger. He was her husband's nephew. Hanan kidnapped him and coldly ended his life. But it didn't end there. When Adam vanished, Afnad was the first to suspect Hanan. But instead of going to the police, she said something unthinkable. If you want to stay in this house, if you want my son not to divorce you, bring me another child to replace Adam. And just like that, Hanan went from murderer to a pawn in Afnad's own demonic scheme. Afnad demanded another child. Hanan said no. That's when Afnad snapped and threatened to report her to the police for Adam's murder unless she brought her a new child. So came the second crime, Yusuf. Hanan took him as demanded. She never knew what Afnad did to him or how his life ended, but it still wasn't enough. A third child was needed, this time to avoid suspicion. Hanan targeted a little child with no family ties to them, little Hanin. Once again, she met the same brutal end, but even that wasn't enough to satisfy Afnad's thirst for revenge. These children are not the same as Adam. She'd insist. The next one must be your own blood. And so came the most unspeakable crime of all. Hanan saw only one option execution. Her own nephew, Muhammad, she took him, and what followed defies comprehension. They strangled him, stuffed his body in a washing machine, then burned him in the oven. That's when everything unraveled. The timing was chilling, just as prosecutors began searching village homes, as if justice itself had timed its move. Like I mentioned before, Hanan was seen watching them from the roof, which led police straight to her house. There, they stood before the oven and found an unspeakably horrifying scene inside. When they pulled out what was left, it was the charred remains of a child. Forensics revealed they belonged to Hanin. Parts of the dress she wore on the day she was kidnapped were found. No one knew if these bones were hers alone, or if the other 3 children were there too. Hanan tried to flee but was captured, along with Afnad. During interrogation, Hanan broke down and confessed everything. For her mother-in-law, she denied every accusation, even as police uncovered human bones inside their livestock pen. Meaning that, even if she wasn't directly involved, it was impossible for her not to know what was happening. The village reeled. No one could grasp that such evil had festered among them. This wasn't kidnapping for ransom or desperation. It was ice-cold vengeance. A wife breaking mother's heart cause she wasn't blessed with a son, and a grandmother willing to quench the fire of her grandson's loss by any means. A crime ripped from nightmares, darker than the bleakest fiction. As for Hanan's husband, no one can fathom his anguish. His mother and wife orchestrated these horrors, but perhaps what shocked everyone most was the confession from Hanin's father. Hanan herself had actually helped the family search for the missing girl. You kill the victim, then walk in their funeral, as the saying goes. Regarding sentencing, sources conflict. Some claim both women remain jailed awaiting trial. Others say Afnad got life imprisonment, and Hanan the death penalty. Kidnapped, strangled, shoved into a washing machine, then into a burning oven. Hanan, the one who cried with the families, was the executioner all along. And Afnad, who buried her own grandson with her bare hands, was the mastermind behind it all. The village will never forget the screams of the children, nor the stench of burning human flesh rising from their neighbor's house. This isn't a story about kidnapping. It's a blind revenge, and a crime darker than anything they had ever seen. And the terrifying question that still lingers: how many other Hanans and Afnads are still living among us, hiding behind faces no one suspects? That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. Catch you in the next one.